It's May the 5th, Revenge of the 5th. Yesterday was May the 4th, Star Wars Day. Donald Trump managed to fuck that up as well. There's some interesting things going on in my life and in Sydney at the moment. I want to try and see how many I can cover here now. Just a little bit of backstory. Last year I was working fast approaching 2 years in a retail job that I really didn't like. It was really doing my head in. It was really messing with me. I was probably the most depressed I've been in a long damn time. And I couldn't stand it anymore. And then through the actions of a very dear friend of mine, I managed to get a new job working for Fairfax Media, who here in Australia, they're a newspaper company. They do the Sydney Morning Herald, they do the Age, Brisbane Times, Western Australian newspaper, Canberra Times. So it's a very big paper. And the thing I like about working for Fairfax is that they correlate with my values and what I believe is right, believe what the world should be. I was doing video news producing, which basically was getting news stories, video news stories, and adding them to the website. Some of them were just straight off the wires, which is basically straight from other news vendor outlets. We just uploaded them straight as they were. Others we had to ferret out material and put them together ourselves. I liked doing both. Sometimes it was really enjoyable to be able to sit down for a few hours and work on a video and make your own creation out of it. But other times it was just important to me to get those stories up and out there so people could be informed. Now I'm 42 years old. Yeah, I don't look it. I've been working since I was 17. And I've had a lot of jobs. The whole thing about being creative and working in the creative industries is that jobs don't last. They can up and vanish from underneath you. You can suddenly realize that you have no work and get made redundant. You can finish the job. That happens. And also, you can just not work. You just don't work out sometimes. Sometimes, your skill and your ability or your way of working or your vision of how the work should be done just doesn't match up with the employer. And they need to get somebody else in. I've had that happen quite a few times. And unfortunately, in between times when you're looking for another creative job, you still need to work. You still need money. You still need to live. And, so I've had to take some shitty ass jobs just to keep going. Jobs that I absolutely hated. And it seems like every time I get one of those, it's just all right, this will keep me going for 6 months. 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later in some instances. And those are big chunks of your life. To be stuck in a shitty job or in a job you don't enjoy or just flat out unemployed. I was unemployed for 2 years at one point. 2 years without a steady, solid income. Anyway, the big deal about this job is that I liked it. I liked my job. I really did. B, I liked the people I was working with. It takes me a long time to get to know people, but I was just starting to get to know these people. And they're great people. I like them so much. But finally, this job meant something. I felt like I was doing something meaningful. You mightn't think so. I was if all I was doing was uploading videos that other people made, it might not sound all that meaningful. But to me, it had meaning to it. I was a graphic designer for years, and graphic design died for me one day when I'd spent a good few months working on a job. I think it was a brochure or something like that. Um, and we put a lot of work and a lot of effort into this. You know, a lot of late hours, a lot of long nights. Put a shit ton of work in this. And it was a freelance gig. So once we finished off it, I was out of the job again. And a few months later, that job had finally been printed and set out. And the first time I saw it out in the wild, it was lying in a gutter. Someone had like picked this thing up, taken one brief second at it, and thrown it away. And that doesn't make you feel good. You know, that was your work. That was what you did. That's how you earned a living. And like there was a certain level of pride in it as well. And it meant nothing to other people. But doing this job, having this job, I was helping inform people about all the shitty things that's going on in the world at the moment. And oh my God, there's some shitty things going on in the world at the moment. You don't need me to recap them here, but fuck. Anyway, getting to the point. Yeah, I do that eventually. Just recently, I'm not sure if it was a new management team or if it was just like a shake-up of the management team or something like that, but Fairfax was getting towards the next financial year, and they did the books and they decided that they needed to cut $30 million out of the budget. I don't think I'm giving anything away here. I don't really give a shit if I am. Why they arbitrarily chose that number, I'm not entirely sure. They mentioned it in the meeting, something to do with, you know what? Bullshit. They were cutting $30 million out of the budget because they said they needed to save money. Okay? Now, the only way to save $30 million in a business, people are going to lose their jobs. Okay? That's where that $30 million is coming from. People's livelihoods. And on Wednesday, they came out and they made the announcement that 125 jobs were going to be cut. That's nationwide and all the different branches and papers and stuff. And they went on to list the different departments where like those jobs are going to go, those cuts are going to go. I was a casual and I worked in video. They're going to get rid of casuals and they're gutting video. I've only been there for a little over 6 months. It might even be close to 8 now. I don't know. So the chances that my job is going to, or that I'm going to make it through in this round of cuts is really, really thin. So once again, I'm going to be without a job. You have no idea how gut-wrenching a feeling that is. You might hate your job. You might hate your job with a passion. But not having a job is worse. Because every single day is just fear. There's no other emotion you can refer to it. You're just scared. You might be angry scared. You might be worried scared. You might be whatever other versions of scared you can be. But at the end of the day, all you feel is scared. I've spent my entire fucking life being scared. I don't like the feeling. But that's just what's happening to me. The thing that should truly be worrying you, the people out there, is that, as I said earlier, the Herald is one of the few papers that is actually trying to get to the truth of the matter. The majority of these jobs that are going are journalists. People who actually try to find the truth and get it out there for you. Get the information out there so you can be informed. And that's important. That is so important in this alternate facts world, having someone who will tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not, is important. Now, the reason they told us that they're making these cuts is because of budget. They said they don't have the money. They've got to find the money somewhere, and that money comes from getting rid of people. Getting rid of the people who actually do the job that keeps the company going. Yeah, you find the logic in that. Now, there is a chief manager, head up owner. I don't know who the fuck he is. His name's David. I don't know his last name. On top of all the news, we're on strike at the moment, by the way. Forgot to mention that. The whole company's on strike because of this news coming out that like people are going to be losing their jobs. Now, this guy, David, apparently he earns an obscene amount of money from the company. From what I was told, it's around like $4 million a year or something along those lines. Those figures aren't substantiated. I don't know. That's just hearsay. A news report came out yesterday. On top of all the news reports saying that the company's on strike, the journos have walked out, that we're losing our jobs, all this sort of stuff. A story then came out that this guy is getting, on top of his salary, a $2.5 million bonus for cutting all these jobs. Now, that $2.5 million could have saved a bunch of jobs. People would not have to be going home at the moment and telling their family, I'm out of work, if they had to put that $2.5 million in. The bullshit of this whole fucking situation is just, it's driving me mental. I've been trying so hard not to let it get to me and not to be angry and not to be upset the last couple of days, but we were finally in a good place. Ash and I wasn't making a fortune, but I was making enough for us to have a life. I was saving some money. I was putting some stuff aside. We were paying all our bills without stressing about it. We could do stuff. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation before, but when I was working retail, and I was working for the biggest technology company in the goddamn world with like multi-billion-dollar goddamn profits, but they still refuse to pay their fucking employees properly. Don't get me started on that. We were always broke. We were so struggling. Like I said, if you've never been in that situation before, you have no idea what it does to you, what it does to your heart, what it does to your head when you get your pay at the beginning of the week. You pay your bills, you look at your bank account, and you realize that you can only survive. You've got 2 weeks to survive through. And the math doesn't add up. The math doesn't let you get all the way to the end of those 2 weeks. That feeling when you or your girlfriend says, it's just like, wow, it'd be really nice to do this, but we can't. And I'm not talking about buying a new car. I'm not talking about buying a house. I'm not talking about going on some lavish holiday or something like that. I'm talking about going out and getting a meal together. I'm talking about maybe going and seeing a movie. I'm talking about little things that keep you going, that makes life worth living. We could do that while I was working at this job. And I was happy. I was happy with my job. I can't tell you when the last time I was happy with my job. I didn't think the job was going to last forever. No job does. But I thought I'd get at least a few good years out of it. I'd get some money put aside so we could actually move on and do something else. It's not fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the people I work with. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to be gutting something that's so essential. To fire people who tell you the truth in a world that doesn't want to hear the goddamn truth nowadays. I'm just scared. I have to be scared again. I am so sick to death of being scared.